Well, my friends, this is a day I think we've all been waiting for. It's time to review Paper Mario Color Splash. A good amount of you only know about me because of my initial impressions of the game, so you might be wondering just how I think it turned out. It was obvious from the first trailer that this wasn't the Paper Mario game most of us were hoping for, but can it stand up on its own as a fun experience? There's only one way to find out. And that's to keep sitting there, I guess. Whoosh! Paper Mario Color Splash is a dumb garbage game for stupid jerks. It features a new mechanic that's the worst, and I hate its dumb, stupid face because sorry, the Paper Mario fan in me broke out for a second. But I promised myself that I would give a fair opinion based on the game itself, not on my own desires, and that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so let's try this again. Paper Mario Color Splash is Sticker Star 2. Anyone who thought that might not be the case was kidding themselves. It's got the same style, more or less the same battle system, the same world map, most of the same little details and mechanics. Sticker Star had a ton of charm and great ideas, but was inhibited by such a lack of story and characters that I might describe it as soulless, and was completely broken by the lack of any sort of XP system, which, when combined with the fact that every move you ever made in battle used up one of your stickers, made battling something that was best avoided, thus rendering playing the game kinda pointless. My biggest question going into Color Splash was, did they fix this devastating XP problem? The answer is yes and no. On the yes side, enemies now drop hammer scraps, which increase your max paint whenever you fill up your meter. This is great because paint is used to both progress through the world and power up your cards, which functionally are identical to stickers. Even having this one small sense of progression does indeed make battling feel much more important. The problem, though, is that battling has now become a chore. With the demonstration of a simple battle against common enemies, here's Arlo on the field. And by field, I mean couch. Now, every time you start a battle, it puts you at the far right side of your collection, so to get to the weaker stuff, you gotta scroll all the way over, because it sorts from left to right, weakest to strongest, and then just puts mushrooms over there. So, okay, so you're over here, you gotta do a lot of scrolling, because these icons are pretty big, and there's no way to make them smaller, so you spend a lot of time scrolling around a whole bunch, and, once you've found your selection, you take it, and you drag it, and you put it right there. Then you go, cards ready. Then you touch to paint, and the more you paint a thing, the more powerful it is. Then you click done painting, and then you flick to play the card. Then at that point you do your action commands and actually attack the guy. This was just to attack one guy with one very simple jump attack. Now there is an option called Advanced Touch Control, and what that allows you to do is to drag a thing up here, and then instead of pressing a button to bring you to the paint screen, you can just paint it right there. Unfortunately, you can't then flick it from there. You still have to go cards ready and then flick it. So really it only eliminates one single click. And I must stress right now the fact that flicking the card has quite literally, functionally, no significance whatsoever. It means absolutely nothing. Hitting cards ready should make it work. Flicking it is just a little way to be like, oh, it's like the funny little gamepad. It's like you're flicking it up to the TV, and it gets old really, really fast. Back to you, Arlo. Thanks, Arlo. This might not seem like that big a deal at first, but imagine doing this constantly, hundreds of times, every time you bump into even the tiniest of enemies. And compare it to a game like, Paper Mario. Press A to select your jump, press A to select the enemy, jump on the enemy. 2 presses plus action commands. In Color Splash, it doesn't matter how weak your foes are, or how much you just want to do nothing more than a simple jump attack. If you count each contact with the touchscreen as a button press, you're looking at a dozen or more presses for each attack. Lots of powerful cards that attack multiple enemies help speed things along a bit, and the further you get in the game, the more you can insta-kill weak enemies if you're lucky enough to hit them with a first strike, but the whole ordeal left me feeling an awful lot like I did in Sticker Star. Like, whenever I saw one of the countless enemies in the game, I just didn't feel like getting into it. It's not quite as bad, but it still weighs down the entire experience, hammer scraps or no. And unfortunately, that's not where my issues with the battle system end. The game auto-targets enemies at all times, both while you're selecting your cards and while Mario's attacking. When guys start to die, Mario moves through the line and doles out attacks to everybody in turn. This removes an enormous amount of the tactical potential of battles, especially considering that different enemies require different attacks. You can spend whole minutes planning out your attacks, selecting just the right cards and trying to gauge how things will play out. Then if one guy dies too early or too late, the whole thing is thrown out the window and you've just got to watch as Mario does everything wrong. Then if you finish off your foes but still have cards lined up, sorry, they're gone forever. It's not so bad because most of the guys you fight are stupidly easy, but in a way that actually leads to its own problem. Between losing cards that didn't get used and using awesome cards on dinky guys because everyone was dinky and my weak cards never lasted long, there was this constant disappointment about the cards I was wasting. Like everywhere I went, everything I did, I was just chucking great stuff down the toilet. And speaking of things that are stupidly easy, this game is stupidly easy. I've come to expect what I think of as Nintendo easy. You know what I'm talking about, how Nintendo likes to make most of their games pretty accessible, and I get that, and it's not usually a big deal. But this game takes it too far. I maxed out on money after a few hours and could buy whatever cards I wanted pretty much forever. The game throws cards at you like they're nothing, which means that wasting isn't exactly wasting even if it feels like it, but it also makes the whole resource management thing a non-issue. Nothing really matters. Just throw cards at guys and it'll work out, who cares? Then it doesn't seem to matter how far you get in the game. You'll still be finding new enemies that are taken out with one fully painted weak jump. 95% of the time, a mini-boss is just a slightly larger collection of regular baddies that you take out with one wave. Thing cards make a return from Sticker Star, and each of the actual bosses requires one or more of them to become weakened, and once you figure that out, there's really no challenge at all. You just blast, weaken, blast. The last boss was the only enemy in the entire game I would call tricky, but it still only took me one try to beat. The game's got puzzles in a fashion, but rarely anything that actually requires thought. They really just require doing. The only times I ever died or failed were these weird sections where something was chasing me, or I had to accomplish some task in a limited amount of time, and the only way to get through them was trial and error, and instead of just starting the sequence over, the game gave me actual game over screens and bumped me to the main menu. This was really aggravating, and one sequence in particular that I had a hard time figuring out in the 3 seconds I was given probably took me 20 tries to beat, with a game over screen and a reload for each one. Okay, I know I've been hitting on the negative stuff pretty hard, but I like to get it out of the way, and we're kind of transitioning out of it here. Now, Color Splash is not a game for everyone. It's essentially a gigantic game of hide and seek, and whether that's good or bad depends on your tastes. At any given time, you're filling in some of the jillions of colorless spots in the world, or searching for hidden blocks and passages, or hunting down dozens and dozens of rescue squad toads that are scattered everywhere, or trying to spot places where you can use your cutout power, or looking for just the right thing in order to put it in just the right place. Some levels have 2 stars in them, right next to each other, and to get them both, you literally just run through the level 2 times. This kind of slightly tedious gameplay is actually something I often find myself enjoying in games. It's kind of fun to just snoop around and slowly uncover stuff and collect cards and gather up toads. It's very casual, and while somewhat satisfying, it never goes far beyond kind of fun. Now, if there's one thing this game's obviously got going for it, it's the visual style. This is the first Paper Mario game where quite literally everything is made of paper, from trees and buildings to running water and puffs of dust. Every little thing gives a feeling of being handcrafted, especially thanks to subtle texturing and little details like the edge of a scrap being bent up the tiniest amount just to give it depth. From the very beginning, it's a delight to see how they converted every aspect of the Mario world into papercraft. Visiting each new environment is delightful as well. I was disappointed that they once more decided on using a world map instead of a cohesive world, but one good thing I can say about that decision is that it allowed the developers to create an extremely varied series of locales without necessarily having to piece them together in a logical way, allowing for some freedom in design. The world also feels so much more real and lived in than Sticker Star's bland 1-5, 4-2, fire, desert, snow, etc. thing. And while it's still mostly just toads, and they rarely have unique characteristics, and they have names like the Professor and the Pirate Captain, this game is hugely improved over its predecessor in the character department. Still nothing as deep as the first 2 Paper Marios, but there are a ton of NPCs you interact with, some on many occasions. Huey is way funnier and has more of a personality than Kirsty ever did. Even baddies have stuff to say this time around, in battle and out, and they inject the game with a lot of very welcome humor. One gripe I've got is that the Koopalings were some of the few characters with actual names, and they were given unique personalities and a lot of funny dialogue, but you rarely interact with them before your single battle with each, which felt like a missed opportunity to me. Speaking of humor though, that's of course something that no Paper Mario has ever lacked, and Color Splash is no exception. Again, I wouldn't say it has the laugh-out-loud moments of Thousand Year Door, but the gags are constant. The writers and translators were apparently given free rein because they reference everything from movies and social awkwardness and internet culture to more risque stuff like voyeurism and gun control. Just about everything that comes out of a character's mouth is a joke, and even the silly nature of the paper theme brings a lot of humor to the game. The richly detailed thing animations are funny as well and a joy to watch, even if the novelty wears off after the first few times. At the end of the day, Paper Mario Color Splash is literally the worst game I've ever played, and I give it -1 billion out of 7! Sorry, he slipped out again. Anyway, Color Splash is definitely a fun game. It's positively brimming with humor and charm, and in terms of characters and story, I'd say it's a step between Sticker Star and the kind of Paper Mario game most of us are wishing for. However, it's bogged down by a tedious and flawed battle system. It's one of the few games I've played where I can say it was so easy it considerably reduced my enjoyment, and even when I was having fun, it was rarely more than just mild fun. It's perfect for one playthrough, especially if you enjoy the idea of collecting every card and filling in every spot and finding every secret, but it's not the sort of game I can see myself wanting to play again. I place it in the middle of the scale with a 4 out of 7. Well, there you have it, folks. The game's out, and that's what I thought about it. It's kind of a relief, you know? It's like an emotional release to finally get this Paper Mario out of the way. I honestly don't know what's in store for Paper Mario in the future. Did they notice all the backlash? Will they consider returning to the series' roots? Will they never make another one because they did stickers and paint and now they can't think of any more paper stuff? Only time will tell. And in the meantime... that's the stuff. Thanks so much for watching, my beautiful friends. If you liked this video and feel like supporting me, head over to my Patreon page where you can get regular behind-the-scenes updates on what I'm working on and help me get a little closer to achieving my dream of YouTubing full-time to boot for as little as $1 a month. This review was in fact brought to you by my top patrons: Zanjo, Zoag, Zakanuva, Ol Burgle from Oldies Gaming Discord channel, Stealth Dad and his son Caden. Hi Caden! Dr. Raskotnik from Wizard Dojo, and Seth Riche. Riche? Sorry, Seth, I don't know how to pronounce that. Thanks, guys!